says, whatever name you call it, it's all one power. Can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's all around us. It's the power of the love in you and me. Be with those words. Feel them in your heart and your soul. Thank you so much, Matt. Such a beautiful song. Probably my favorite song from Daniel Nahmod, and that was just a beautiful, beautiful rendition of it. Thank you, Matt. So I'm going to repeat some of those words to you, and I'm going to invite you to perhaps close your eyes and take a reflective stance and just allow yourself to be immersed in these words. There's one power, only one, invisible, and yet you see it everywhere and every day. One power, indescribable. And you speak of it with every word you say. Mysterious, until you know the truth. As simple as the love inside of you. It's all one power. Can't you see it? It's the power of the love in you and me. What more do I need to say, right? It's all there. One power. Indescribable, invisible, and yet it is the very foundation of our lived reality. And it is beautiful. It is a beautiful reflection, I believe, of Unity Church of the Hills' core value of spirit-centered. We have been working on our core values for a couple of months, and the whole community came together and discerned 3 core values: spirit-centered, inclusive, and loving. And then a team took these words and gave deeper meaning and life to them by coming up with definitions and practices to help us embody them. And when I look at the definition we have chosen for spirit-centered, it says everything that Daniel's song said. Spirit-centered for us means being led by source from which everything begins and returns. Do you feel the power of that and the commitment it shows in this spiritual community to live inside of God? Can you hear not only the resonance in Daniel's song, but also, for those of you that are familiar with Unity, the resonance with our first principle. Our first principle is that there is one presence and one power, only one. There is nothing outside of that presence and power. Everything that we see and hear and experience, and everything underneath it all, the invisible quality of existence, all of it is one. One power, one presence, one source. And yet, we can affirm that. We can attest to our commitment to live that, but it's not always so easy. Many years ago, probably 35 years ago, it was before I was a Unity minister, a Unity minister one Sunday got up and he repeated that first principle. There's one presence and one power. And then he asked the congregation, do you believe that? Do you believe that? Yeah, people are nodding their heads, right? And as you can imagine, that's what people in this congregation did. And then the minister said, I don't. Wow, that was a surprise, right? A little unsettling to have your minister say he doesn't believe in the first principle. But then he went on and he said, oh, I believe it intellectually. I affirm it. But when I'm really honest with myself, much of the time, I believe in something else. I believe that this situation is against me. I believe that person over there is, well, you name it. There's lots of things we can come up with for that person over there. I believe that I am unworthy. So while I may want to believe it, it's a bit of a stretch to say that I'm fully immersed in that truth. And I heard that a long time ago, and I was like, wow, I could really resonate with it, and I can still resonate with it today. I mean, I've delved into spiritual teachings. My spiritual practice is solid. I do yoga, I do meditation, I do this, and I do that. And oftentimes I'm in a belief that is dualistic, that is in separation consciousness. So when we speak of our intention to be spirit-centered, we as a community are committing ourselves to evolving and expanding beyond that sense of limitation. And to do this, we need to really engage in some practices that help us fully live that. I'm reminded of the quote by Waldo Emerson that said, every man, and I would say every person, is an inlet and can become an outlet of all there is to God. Each one of us is an inlet. That spirit gives us life, and it constantly indwells us. It constantly feeds us. And our role is to become the outlet of that, to be the expression of that. This is our second principle. And so when we talk about being spirit-led, we're talking about merging those two principles, one presence and one power, with our reality as an expression of the divine, and bringing them together in full expression in our world. That's a big order. We're up to big things. And to do that, the core values team came up with 4 practices that help us embody this idea of being spirit-centered. And they did a great job with these. They're up on the screen. And what I want to do this morning is to kind of take it and look at it piece by piece, each expression. So the first one says that we honor the many names for God, the many paths to God, the many ways of experiencing God. We honor it all. We see it all as one. And this statement was inspired by Unity's joint statement of peace. And this was adopted by Unity following 9/11. I'm going to share the whole thing with you this morning. I stand for peace in the presence of conflict. I stand for love in the presence of hatred and fear. I stand for forgiveness in the presence of injury. I honor the many names for God, the many paths to God, the many ways to worship God. For there is only one presence and power of God, and God loves each one of us equally. I urge all nations, their leaders and their people, to turn to God by whatever name and to pursue peace. For peace honors the God of all faiths. I stand for peace in my lifetime. You know, my husband and I, when we were in ministry, we introduced this to our congregation, and the whole congregation stood and said it every Sunday. You know, when we talk about honoring the many paths to God, the many ways of experiencing God, we are talking about recognizing that same presence and power exists in all faith traditions, all nations, all people. We're choosing to honor it all. And when we do that, we create the space for healing. We create the space for peace in our world. So the second practice says we embrace all experiences as an opportunity for transformation. We embrace all experiences as an opportunity for transformation. Now, we all have preferences, right? If you're like me, your preference is for things to be smooth and easy and joy-filled and everything going my way, because my way is the right way, right? And then there are those other experiences. You know, I mean, if we're honest, don't we try and push those away? Sometimes we try and push people away, right? But if there is one presence and one power, everything that shows up in our lives is an opportunity to experience it, to deepen our understanding of it, to be transformed by it. Now, my preference, quite honestly, my preference was not to have a leaky heart valve. My preference was not to have surgery. As a matter of fact, when I was first told about this, there was a whole bunch of resistance that kind of surfaced in me. I was like, I do all the right things. I'm healthy. You're talking, you got the wrong person, right? You know? But here's the thing. When the cardiologist says, well, half your blood is sloshing out the wrong way, you kind of need to pay attention. And surgery seemed like the best option. Now, once again, I went into surgery. I was open to it. I was expecting the best. And I got it, I really did. But I also thought that I would get out of surgery and, you know, be dancing in the park a week later. That didn't happen. It turns out that to do heart surgery, because they need to put you on a heart-lung bypass, there's quite a bit of recovery. And it's not just the scars, it's the lungs and the heart kind of need to find their way back to normal. And that takes time and patience. And, you know, I found my body tired, but my mind was tired. I had all these books I was going to read while I was in recovery, but I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't really meditate, but here's what I could do. I could be there in the moment, immersed in the presence, immersed in the silence, and I have to tell you that it was so profound. It opened me in ways I could not have imagined. And while I'm back to all my normal activities and feeling great, even in the midst of the busyness, that presence will overwhelm me. So that surgery was a gift. It was a gift of transformation, and I am profoundly grateful for it. So next practice, we listen for the voice of God guiding us on how to serve one another in the world. Listen. How well do you listen? You know, I mean, how well do you listen to that person that's talking to you? When you're in conversation, how often do you find yourself not paying attention to what they're saying or really connecting with them, but working on your response to what they're saying? How often do you discount what someone says or dismiss it because what you have to say is more important? I think if we're honest, we can all go there, right? And so what we've discovered in this journey of life is that listening isn't so easy. It's not easy to listen to one another. And then listening to God, invisible, indescribable. How do you listen to the voice of God that 1 Kings 19:12 calls the sound of sheer silence? The sound of sheer silence. It is so vast that you can't hang on to it, but it is the deepest part of reality, the deepest part of who we are. Now, if we truly listen to that voice of God, we may hear some things that we really like, and we may find that we're called to do something really hard. And in those cases, it's real easy to go, oh no, I have a better idea. Thank you very much. But if we're choosing to listen to God, we're choosing to listen fully and completely and to respond to that call in each and every moment. That takes a deep openness to the present moment and a deep letting go of our personal agendas. And finally, the fourth practice, we connect with and express the divine in our thoughts, words, and deeds. I really think that if we've practiced the first three practices, we'll find ourselves here. This is probably the fullest expression of that. It is truly becoming the outlet of all there is to God, right? It says that no matter what, we're going to live inside that reality. We're going to express it in our thoughts, words, and deeds. You know, many of us are familiar with the Buddhist concept of karma. And Thich Nhat Hanh talks about how karma is misunderstood, not just in the Western world, but in the Eastern world as well, that people understand it as reincarnation, you know, and you kind of reap what you sow. But he said the true concept of karma is much subtler, much more deep and profound than that. Karma is our legacy. Karma is the result of our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. And that is true in every moment of our life. But here's the tricky part about it. It's not just that our thoughts, words, and deeds affect us. They affect the world around us because we are all one. So what I would say is this community is up to something big. You have chosen to listen to that source, to respond to that source, to be led by that source. And that's deep and profound work. I'd like to close by returning to some of Daniel's words. He says, whatever name you call it, it's all one power. Can't you see? Whatever name you give it, it's the very air we breathe. It's all around us. It's the power of the love in you and me. Be with those words. Feel them in your heart and your soul. And I invite you to take a moment and to look at your fellow companions on this journey, to recognize that as a community, we are choosing to allow Spirit, to allow Source, to direct every moment of our lives individually and collectively. And you might want to just look into the face of someone close to you and say silently or aloud, I honor the place in you where the entire universe dwells. I honor the place in you which is of love, of truth, of light, of peace. When you are in that place in you, and I am in that place in me, we truly are one. Namaste.
Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I circulate, and I am grateful.